Okay, hi and welcome to this lesson. It's an analysis of image text. It's the 19th of March 2018 here at St Joseph's. Year 8, we've already had some experience and some practice at looking at how images work to communicate. Today we're going back. It's a bit of revision. Try and bear with me as I go through some of the more salient or meaningful features of these images. I've chosen to look at 3 movie posters. One, that's a twin, Casino Royale, Bourne Supremacy. Then we have a science fiction film with Emily Blunt and Tom Cruise, Live, Die, Repeat. That was the title of the movie in some countries. In Australia it was released as Edge of Tomorrow. All right, and the last one we're looking at is an image from a book, a picture book by Sean Tan. Now, we've had a look at The Lost Thing in class, and I thought that it might be worthwhile having a look at a different image by Sean Tan, who's, as far as I'm concerned, a really talented picture book illustrator. He's a storyteller in his own right, of course, and if you're going to look at the text that contains image that communicates without words, well, I don't think you can go past some of these images. We'll have a look more closely at each of them as we go. So what I need you to do is, well, basically just concentrate, listen to what I'm doing, and of course my ideas aren't necessarily what you'd call exhaustive. If you can think of other things, then please put them in. You'll be having a look at my cursor as it moves around the images to show you what's going on in my own interpretation of these images. However, I'll also try and write things down only because I try and leave something on the poster so that you know what's going on. So I don't have a pen as such that the batteries run out and it's hard to find batteries for them. So what I'll do is I'll just use my clumsy finger and just indicate some salient features. All right, so I think it'd be fair to say that these posters are designed to sell the picture. Almost everything you do in English is related to the idea of persuasion. If you're reading a novel, well, the author is trying to persuade you of a particular world or of a group of particular characters who move through that world. You've got to be compelled, you've got to be engaged in what's going on, you have to feel for the characters, and so therefore you care for them. If you have a two-dimensional cardboard cutout character, you're not going to care really about what's going on. So things like backstories, context, accuracy in the descriptions are all part of what makes those novels compelling, and so therefore you care for the characters, you're engaged in the action, and so you are immersed in the story. The same thing has to happen with a visual, especially when it's only got a limited amount of time in which to work, glancing at it on a hoarding or looking at it on the side of a bus or glancing at the printed version of these posters in a magazine. However, for what it's worth, let's have a look at what makes these particular images work in terms of how the image relates to our expectations of the story. Both of them are essentially spy stories, one with a very famous character, the Casino Royale film, which was the first of the Daniel Craig James Bonds, and the Bourne Supremacy, which was the first in the trilogy about Jason Bourne, the confused and mysterious and enigmatic CIA operative whose story makes for great viewing. Now look at these. There is one thing that sets the Bourne Supremacy poster up as kind of different. It's got a strap line. They stole his identity, now he wants it back. You'll see that there's no strap line in Casino Royale, at least not in this particular image. It's basically working on the strength of the character. It's probably been marketed to within an inch of its life before this. We have the 7 inside as part of the gun design. We know that it's a Bond film because of the 007, and if you can see the cleverly arranged Casino Royale's zeros create, of course, the 007 logo or number, which everyone associates, of course, with the iconic spy from MI5 or MI6 or whatever it is. He's the last or the latest in a long line of James Bonds since the 60s movies. Very successful franchise, as is, of course, the Bourne Supremacy, a more modern take on this, and it's they're both very, very good action films. Now, action films are just that. They're action films. They have good human stories in them. However, they've got great villains. They've got a very accessible hero. Casino Royale's James Bond, of course, is more cartoonish, I suppose, than someone like Jason Bourne, whose action comes across as fairly gritty and realistic. Okay, let's have a look at this. You've got this darkness right in the middle of both posters. That's obviously designed to create a contrast. This is all visual stuff. So the higher the contrast between the darkness in the middle there, here, it's a bad highlighting choice, wasn't it? There and there is in nice contrast to the half light in which we find the faces. Technically, that's got an interesting technical term, the use of the shadowy light, the light and the dark, the contrast between the brighter areas, the circle behind him, and the brighter areas, the blurred lights of what we're assuming is the casino. I'm making an absolute dog's breakfast of these posters, but that's what I tend to do. Don't be worried about doing the same with your stuff when you're looking through it. It just shows that you've used them as a working document and that you've looked at them exhaustively or as fully as you possibly can. So the term for this use of light and dark, it actually goes back to painting, and it's an Italian term, which is chiaro, it's one word, chiaro scuro. Again, I apologise for the writing, useless. I can't wait to get a pen back. Chiaro scuro, it's actually two words, two Italian words put together, which just means light, chiaro or clear, and scuro, which we can see in other words like obscure. The basis there, obscure, which in that sense means dark. Chiaro, scuro. It's a technique in art and also in posters, obviously, in the modern medium. If we look at the next poster, so I think you can see here, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with the sense of we've got mystery. We've got the idea of intrigue, and these things I think I could say come through in the quality, the tone of the poster, the colours, the darkness, the very clear titling, Casino Royale, 007, the matched up, the mated title and the number of the spy, and his code number, and the Bourne Supremacy, which tends to introduce us, of course, to the idea behind it, the fact that his identity has been stolen. He doesn't really know who he is. Is he really someone called Bourne? Is he someone else? And of course, the film uses that particular conundrum, that particular mystery, solves it to resolve the whole idea. We want to know who he is as much as he does, and that's why they're engaging. We are also part of the characterisation. All right. So they've got mystery, they've got intrigue. There's a certain sombre. Oh boy, I wish I could write as well with my fingers as I can with a pen. Not that I'm brilliant with a pen either. Sombre. They're a dark, sad, not sad looking, but serious. Okay, these are high-minded. They're trying to show you that these films are slightly more high-minded than a normal, Fast and Furious or other lighter action scale film. They're high-minded. They're well made, they're beautiful to look at, but they're also interesting to see in terms of what the character does. What else do we have? Well, in this one here, this is in the Bond poster here. It's interesting because there are no indications of the actor's name, no details of the production. These are all in small print, by the way, down here in the Bourne Supremacy. Why does that happen? Well, I suppose one of the reasons why that happens is that this particular franchise, the Bond franchise, is so well known. It's always the same production company. It's been happening for years and years. It appeals to a certain generation, but they're also trying to capture the newer generation. It's edgy. Both men have guns poised or ready to be used. You can see the hands, you can see the faces, you can see the eyes, especially in this one here, what we'd call the shifty eyes, or he's looking what we call furtively around him. What's going on? We want to know. He wants to know. There's obviously a sense of tension and conflict there. The equivalent, I suppose, ideas for the Bourne film are that he's coming directly towards you. He looks determined. He's as determined as the language in the caption or the tagline. They stole his identity. Now he wants it back. There's no sense of, please, may I have it back? He's going to get it back at all costs. The use of the word they, okay, the pronoun for others around him. We know that he's up against more than one person at some sort of organisation. That's how you should look at these posters. What is it that makes them work? The use of chiaroscuro, the bright background, which I'm sure is some sort of a badge that's obscured maybe the people he used to work for, the people who introduced him to this spy work. We don't know for sure, but it works. It's glowing. It's in the background. It's what's caused this particular riddle in his experience. You probably can't see it as clearly, I don't think. But there are other things on this table. You can't even make out what this thing is. However, on the table there, I don't even know why you'd put this in. It's some sort of gadget or an idea. We can't really work that out. At first I thought it was a smaller image of some sort of a torture chair of some sort, but it's just there on the table. People experience the movies. They want you to see these at the films, at the movies. They've both got indications. This one is just generally coming soon, November the 17th. You know, everyone starts thinking, oh, wow, I can't wait till November the 17th. I'm going to go on opening night. So they do tend to, movie posters are just for that particular thing. They try and create anticipation of what's going on. Let's have a look at this next one. I've seen it. Good film. I thought it was a well-made film, good story, well told, all those sort of things that you need to make a film reliably profitable. I'm not going to write as much on this one, but look at it carefully. You've got that beautiful contrast between the characters and the background, that lovely sun, the burst. We don't know if that's the sun or an explosion of some sort. We know that there's a war of some sort. Look at the background, the missiles, the helicopters grouping around. We know it's set in exotic locations, London in this case. The use of language as well helps us to understand some of the qualities of the film. Like I said before, mentioned before, Live, Die, Repeat is actually an alternative film title for this. And I think it's a good one. It's very simple. It almost sounds poetic. Live, die, repeat. And as you watch the movie, you can see what that concept means, that the characters are able to, because of what's happened to them with these aliens and their DNA being introduced into their own bodies, they're able to, unfortunately, they die, but then they come back to life, and so that they repeat the experience, and of course, until the solution is found. In many other countries, it was just called Edge of Tomorrow. Notice how tomorrow is written in red, and that sort of military stenciled font. And of course, you can see the connection between the director of The Bourne Identity and this film. And some people who are film buffs, of course, the first thing they'll want to know is who directed it. So if you were happy with The Bourne Identity, directed by, let's see who he is here.